Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE and consists of all sorts of enigmatic wisdom and ways and strategies that we can live a little bit more of a reasonable life. Now, if you've listened to me before, you've heard this before, but bear with me for those who are unaware. Living a reasonable life means living a life in which we don't ask other things to change for us. We don't go around trying to say, hey, I mean, that's what we normally do, right? We normally think other people should drive differently. The weather should be different. Things should be closer, things should be cheaper, things should be, we all have an opinion on how things are supposed to be. And we all want things to be quote unquote better. And that usually means better for us. But in the grand scheme, we don't always know how things are going to work out. We can predict how they're going to work out, usually incorrectly, but not for us, right? We can predict how they're going to work for us, and then we're in that prediction. We create these, what do they call it? Those things when you say self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what it's called. We can create self-fulfilling prophecies by predicting things, and then we go, see, I knew it was going to happen that way. I knew it. But the thing is the reason it happened that way probably is because you were so sure it was going to happen that way. And so that's how you may have helped it along in little ways that you're not even aware of. When we're open to actually releasing all of those, I knew it was going to be that way, like all of our knowledge, if we can get rid of, oh, well, this has happened to me before, and so it's going to happen to me again. Well, one, maybe because you have a lesson to learn, right? Maybe because you need to learn something in your life. And so you have cycles of things happening. But that is all coming from perception. It's all coming from frame of reference. It's all coming from what you're living under the influence of. All of these things are coming from outside of you. The universe is supporting you. You're being supported by Tao. And yes, there is trauma that we experience when we're young, and those things do affect us because when we're young, we have very bad frames of reference. We have a bad frame of reference when we're young. So when our parents walk out of the room, we might feel abandoned because we don't have object permanence, right? So they walk out of the room and we think that they're gone forever. And if they stay out of the room for a long period of time, we might not know what to do about that. It's interesting when I talk to my sister has children. I do not. But one time, one of my sister's kids, wrote a story for school about something that my niece and my sister had an interaction. She wrote about this interaction that was so important to her. And when I read that, I looked at my sister and I said, "You don't remember this, do you?" She was like, "No, I don't." But that was so important to the niece, right? To my niece, my sister's daughter. Because the frame of reference got solidified for some reason. We don't know what stories we're going to cement in our lives. And those stories are going to really dictate how we see the world. So these little tiny things that happen that other people aren't even going to remember are going to be the things that you're building your entire life around. And that's why it's important for us that's why I have really enjoyed looking at the Tao. Because the Tao gets us to identify those things and start to dismantle them. This is why I talk about living under the influence, or talking about the idea of like, well, what is our frame of reference? Because when we talk about those two things, right, what are we living under the influence of and what's my frame of reference? What I'm really addressing is what has informed me about my role in the world. And once I'm informed about my role in the world, I'm going to start to exist and exhibit behavior as if that's true. Well, the problem is that it's not true. This is why we talk about living a more reasonable life. It's reasonable that when we logically look at things, we can say, well, you're not this one thing, right? The world isn't abandoning you. Like, that's not a reasonable thought, right? It's not a reasonable thought to think that you're going to get in trouble for voicing your opinion. But a lot of people live, I mean, even myself live, like if I tell somebody the truth, that's going to hurt them. Well, because it hurts them, they're going to retaliate against me. And that retaliation is going to be me getting in trouble. And I don't like that. And I'm afraid of that. So I don't want to speak up. I don't want to say anything to somebody that might hurt them because my hurting them is quote unquote bad. Well, all of this is just belief. All of this is just, none of that's real. Julie's going to join me and we're going to chat a little bit. Hey, sweetheart, how are you?
How are you?
I am beautifully.
Good. You always are. Yeah, I find that quite interesting that we tell ourselves a story that we're going to get into what I would say, I wouldn't label it trouble so much as more of an uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
You have to sit in, you know. But we only sit in that uncomfortable position if we allow ourselves to do that. So
to sit in that uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
Right.
If we allow that, we kind of, in a way, create that discomfort.
Well, for myself, I know I do that. So like that's something that I'm always afraid of is getting in trouble. You know, deep down, and I've dealt with a lot of it, so it's not like it's paralyzing or anything, but I still do hesitate, you know, like when, like the other day, I told someone I saw something, and even though this person knows that I don't like leading comments and leading questions and stuff, she asked me, "Didn't you love it?" And I was like, wow, like it was good. I don't know that I would say I loved it, but how am I going to respond to that excited question with, bwah, bwah, you know, like, didn't you love it? Well, no, I didn't. I thought it was okay. You know, and so, and it doesn't really matter because it's not a big deal, but I realized
you could have answered yes to that question.
I did.
Because you could answer it exactly as it literally stands. Didn't you love it? You're right. Yes, I didn't.
And it was so there are these things where, you know, one, I am attracting that question because it's a pointed question, and I realize that I don't like pointed questions, and they get me to, they really challenge me. So one, I attracted it. So I'm not going to put this on the other person.
Yeah.
But I am challenged to speak up. Go on.
Your opinion or your thoughts towards it were obviously valued by the other person.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why you've asked for that, because and
and we had talked about it a couple times, and you know, and I did, you know, so I said yes, but And then I put in some of my thoughts about some of the space and the way it was lit, and maybe it wasn't the lighting, maybe it wasn't the work that was bad, but the way that it was presented and other stuff like that,
Yeah.
And so I did express, but as soon as the question came out, didn't you love it? I definitely recognize that question as being leading in a very direct way,
Yes.
And that's because of frames of reference that I carry where, I don't know, I think a lot of it has to do with me being the second born and me, having had to not challenge my mom, especially on how much she had to do for my sister. So I had to be there, without, I couldn't complain about being somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if I did, then my mom would feel bad because she's forcing me to do things, to sit at a gymnastics meet with my sister for the whole day. But my mom would feel bad because she doesn't have any other option. So that's the frame of reference, and I'm just figuring this out at this moment, right? So this is real time sort of, so if that were the case, I want to make sure, because if I made my mom feel bad, I would get in trouble. Literally, right? I would be I did something wrong, and that wrong thing I did.
That's what you were doing. You were pissing on their bonfire, and that's what you're getting in trouble for.
Right. Because I'm well, this isn't fun for me as, someone who's younger than my sister. I mean, it's only a year, but even still, I have nothing to do all day, and they're well, you could bring a book. Well, I don't like to read. Right? Cause I'm dyslexic and all this stuff. And so, all of this really just wraps up into this whole, thing of this is my frame of reference. This is how I believe the world is going to treat me. And as a child, I created that through these experiences. And so I find it difficult sometimes to tell somebody who's telling me, literally, this is what I want you to say. And when that's not true, I find it difficult to be honest.
Yeah. I have the same kind of thing as well. Because there's many things I'd like to give my perspective on. But I know that perspective would not be received very well. And it may cause a disconnect between me and person, say, that I would be telling the truth to.
Right.
It would cause kind of an issue, really, there. And that would then lead me to trouble, where I would have to start working towards correcting whatever energy I'd put out there, kind of thing, So I do get what you're saying about that.
Yeah.
But then you see, you mentioned earlier the story that we tell ourselves, the story we create.
And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. We are saying that this person is going to say this, think this, do this. We're saying that they are going to do that. In fact, we don't know.
We don't. Nope.
Yeah. So
I am filling in the gaps because of an experience. And this is where I talk about I'm under the influence of these experiences I had as a child.
Same.
And I am taking that influence and I am making it
present.
I'm making it I'm when someone says, "Didn't you love it?" Or when somebody asks me a question that's "You don't think I'm cold, do you?" I'm giving you the answer, and I've just been bitching about someone else calling me cold, and it's now I'm literally challenging you to tell me I'm cold because you do think I'm cold. And it's well, now I have to figure out how to be honest in that moment, because in my body, when I get that sort of leading question, there's a freezing of
an alert. There's an alert system.
There's an alert system that says, because my mom was a little erratic, because I didn't know. I mean, she wasn't erratic. I just didn't know what would piss her off. But when she'd get pissed off, it's huge and it's immediate, like,
Yes.
and the hammer's getting, put down real quick. And so like there was my parents had 2 kids before they were 20. So
They did a Julie. They just
Yeah,
knocked them out willy-nilly.
and that's like you're not mature enough really to be calm
Correct.
when a child points out how inadvertently, like you see through the actions of the child that they're not happy, and now you're blaming yourself for being a parent to a child when you're unable to satisfy them, whether that's financially or emotionally or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then just like any immature person, they're going to experience you're going to have a backlash to, someone pointing out that, you're not all that you think you are.
Aye, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. For me, on that journey, being that parent of small children, I mean, I had my first child when I was still a child. I was 17
Yeah.
when I had my first kid, and I could say that was due to circumstance. And it really was.
It was the circumstance that you got pregnant.
Yeah.
Just like, and that was just, I
did the deeds that would lead to pregnancy as well.
Right.
All of that was circumstantial, but that's okay. That's fine. It's neither good nor bad. It is what it is. And so, I brought these children up. And the thing that children have a wonderful way of doing is showing you your own hypocrisy, which is quite a painful process, actually, if you are aware of it and you accept these things.
Right.
So they showed me these hypocrisies within myself. And because as well that my emotional type of intelligence was kind of quite small. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just me explaining literally what's going on with this being that is in this world called Julie. So it's only many, many years later, in fact, probably about 3 or 4 years later, the geese, that the emotional intelligence has come up to par to allow me to have a look at these experiences and their influences upon my present time situation, and things like telling people the truth.
Yeah.
So, it is difficult, and words are things, as you know. So there is, with tact, there's a lovely thing called tact that allows you to sit for a moment, as long as you've got that moment at hand, of course. If you've got someone in your face asking you a leading question and you want to be honest, say, well, let's change that question.
Right.
Which is usually the thing that I do. Let's have a look at what you've just said to me. I'm going to just change that around a little bit.
And I think...
I'm going to, allow to be, tell you the truth and deal with it, really.
And I think for me, what you just said inspired me to have this thought of well, what if I do just kind of take a step back and say, well, I'm going to rephrase that, right? And just say, instead of, and just point out the fact that it's a leading question for myself, just sort of be like, if someone says, hey, didn't you love that? And I was just like, well, first off, maybe we could, I don't know how I would do it, but just sort of
didn't or did.
It was, what's that?
I'd have said didn't or did what you asked me. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I definitely need to be able, what I want, and this is something that I recognize, right? So when I'm done with that interaction, I recognize the things I don't like that I did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I do that.
Because I do like how I responded to it, because I did say, I don't like that I was forced to start with yes and then but. Right? I don't like that I succumbed to it. But I do like how I dealt with it, because ultimately in the end I did tell the truth. I did say, hey, there was this section that I thought wasn't so great. And that was really what I needed to say.
Dividing the personality, the soul in front of you with the task they are asking you to measure.
Yeah.
There's a way of doing that, I think,
right.
So that you're asking me about this production, this action, this. Mm-hmm. You're not asking me about you as a person. That's a separate thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about this, I picked one of my random number DAOs, and would love for you to join me on this, just because we're on the subject. So if you have a moment to come back up, and when
I
you
definitely
would
love. I would love that. I'll come out now, and we will.
Okay, wonderful. So the random number that I chose is number 2. Which is identifying the manifestation. And I really think, like, just looking at that title, it is what we're doing. We're identifying that which we've manifested. We're identifying that which is out here in the world. We're identifying, like, when someone asks a question, when we make an assumption, when we do all of these things, all of that is manifestation. And all of that manifestation could change just by having a different perspective.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to get my little book here, Martin John. I don't like to advertise for you or anything, but I have
absolutely.
This book. It's called Tao Te Ching, and it's a New English version by Martin John. Aren't I lucky? So let's have a look. Number 2.
So it's number 2, right in the beginning. And it reads, opposites exist among the particular. Identifying the beautiful creates the ugly. Identifying good creates evil. Identifying the particular separates all manifestations. Reality and fantasy are opposing thoughts. Difficult and easy are opposing degrees. Long and short are opposing perceptions of time or space. Because of this, the master doesn't rely on words. She teaches by being without explanation. In this way, she is most helpful. She inspires all things to be without rejecting them. She gives them life, but refuses to possess them. Her actions spring forth from perfection. They are not hers to own. Thus, they will never be forgotten. So,
wow, that is some text. That is, isn't it? There's a lot in there.
There is, like, as I'm going through it, I'm seeing all of these places that we addressed in this idea of having a perception. And of course, although we're focused right now on getting in trouble or being asked the leading question, so being told what we're supposed to say, and being led into a place, and then also not liking that we're succumbing to the request to express things in a specific way.
Yeah.
So there's so many places, like, one, identifying the particular separates all manifestations. So instead of, like, receiving what I would then identify as the pointed question, like, that's me identifying this question in a very particular way because it was phrased a certain way. And this, I think, goes to my fear of disappointing my mom, or disappointing, like having the wrong answer, being wrong.
Yeah. It's that, for me, when I think about that, is about the value of you in another. So if you asked me a question and I kind of gave you an answer that kind of took away some of that zest that you kind of see in me, in the response, it kind of dampens what you thought was there. That's kind of what I think of when I think, I might give the wrong answer to something. It may change the perception of who I am or what I'm saying to the receiver. And that He's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I'm going to be all coy so
Yeah.
that I don't take a stance.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the question so that I have leeway to say, "Oh yeah, well I wasn't saying that."
Yeah.
Like even because like in the middle of my answering the question, I realize you are looking for a different answer. I talked to a friend of mine yesterday whose partner died of ALS. And when his partner had ALS, my friend
what is ALS? Sorry.
Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't know what ALS is, but it is a 100% fatal. I think it's a neurological disease where you it's what Stephen Hawking had.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, it like your mind is as sharp as it's ever been. There's no cognitive decline whatsoever, but your body decays.
Yeah.
And in this way. And so his partner had ALS, and he had ALS for 5 years, and he just slowly declined. And before he got ALS, he was a celebrated architect. And so what happened was my friend got a tattoo that reminded him of his partner. And it was a tattoo that he wanted to get well before his partner ever had ALS, but his partner believed that believed that my friend was pre-memorializing him. And you're never going to get over that, right? Like, one, the ability to communicate is really hampered with ALS because you can't speak, right? So you have to type everything out, and it takes a long time. And, if you were to believe that you hurt somebody's feelings and while they're dying, like literally.
Yes.
That's going to be hard for you to sit and wait for a text response from somebody. You're going to want to defend yourself,
Yeah.
And so his partner, my friend's partner who had ALS, just sort of like said, "Congratulations." And it was really confusing, but it wasn't a conversation that could really be had. And after he passed, my friend found text that said that he learned that he believed my friend was pre-memorializing him, and that hurt. But there was no way of getting around that, right? Like it was so difficult. And that's like identifying the particular separates all manifestation. Now, like you identified something particular as a tattoo. They identified that action as something, and now we're separate.
Yes.
Right? As soon as we start identifying particular things, you say something because you want something. I hear something. I am identifying these things as like, I want a particular response. I personally want a particular way of like an entryway to a conversation that doesn't have me like with the ability to be in trouble and all of this other stuff, right?
Yes.
And all of that, and that's like reality and fantasy are opposing thoughts. And it's like, but what my belief is from this experience is that this is real, not fantasy. You're actually leading me on, but they're not different. Like all I have to do is kind of let go of the idea that I know something.
Yeah, you almost have to let go of your own thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Because they are only yours.
Right. They're
i.e.
particular.
The example of the friend. Yes. Yeah. So, once you're having those own thoughts in your own head, they are separate from everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've identified it. You've identified it as separate, even though you've identifying the particular separates. So you've identified something particular that you want.
Yeah.
And then once you step out in front of someone else and you have that particular desire, that you have that desire to have this particular thing, you have separated. You've separated something, right?
Yeah.
And then it says, like even before that, it says opposites exist among the particular.
Yes.
So as soon as you identify like, oh, this is the answer that they want, there's an opposite to that, meaning that there is something they don't want.
Yes. Yes.
And
Definitely.
once you're afraid that there is something they don't want because you have identified when they ask the leading question, there's something that they want. I believe that there is only one answer here, because the other answer is going to get me in trouble.
Yeah, that's the thing they don't want. And suddenly your focus is on that now.
Right. The focus is on me staying out of trouble.
Yes.
You know? And so, like when my friend asked, didn't you love it? I was like, yes. Like I couldn't say no. Like my body would not let me say no. And then I had to, gather my wits and say, well, it was lit this way. That I thought, like there was this section that was very empty in the show, and and it was very much like, it was fine. I felt good about it, but I recognized how as soon as she asked me, didn't you love like how the show was hung or whatever, I was very much like, oh, I didn't, but I did love the work. Right. Yeah. And so I was able to, work it out and be happy with how I responded, but still recognize that because the leading question, we identified the particular, you want a specific answer from me.
Yeah. She's providing the railings for you to step along the path.
Right. And rather than like, 'cause like what I would like, even so on Saturday, I went to a potluck and I brought fermented onions. And fermented red onions are bright pink. They come out bright. They're beautiful. And they were in a glass container. But it was. I think it was just a little bit more difficult to get out. And I don't think people knew what it was because it's bright pink. It's like these, like strips of onion and stuff. And I don't think it's obvious because it's very liquidy. And I don't think everybody knows what's in it. And the only thing that's in it is onion and salt. And there's a big leaf on the bottom, and that leaf was for a horseradish leaf that has tannins so that they would stay crispy, right? So it wouldn't just dissolve into mush.
Yeah.
And so I had to tell people, please have this. Like, this is fermented onion. And this is a group of, people that are at a yoga studio. So when they hear that it's like actually fermented, they realize it's healthy for you. And then they want to do it because it's healthy and all of these sorts of things. Right. But what ended up, I wanted praise,
Of course you did.
Because like this took me a week. I didn't just pick something up on the way, right? Like this was planned and like I fermented this. This is healthy for all of us, and it's vegetarian, which I would normally stay away from. And so eventually people started eating it, and they were like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "Yeah, right." But I asked, "What do you think?" I didn't ask, "Do you love it?" If I asked anything at all, I would just request that they tried it. And then they would put it on their plate, they would try it, and then they would, like, later on when they saw me, they would, like, point at me and goes, "Oh my God, those onions were so great." And I didn't have to lead them into the thing, into what I wanted. If they said, "Oh, they're a little bitter," or "Oh, they're a little this," I mean, they're not. But if they were to say something like that, I would receive it. I would be like, "Oh, okay, well, it's not for you," and that's cool, But nobody did that. Everybody told me what they thought, and they all liked it, and they asked me how I made it, and then and so it was really just a nice interaction. But I had to get them to try it, and I felt okay with that because I asked them to try it. And did that affect their choice? Yes, probably. But it didn't necessarily have to affect what they thought of it.
Yeah, exactly. What you've done there is you've provided an experience, and you've let go of any result, any need to know, really.
Right.
You've just it's almost like pass an experience in front of somebody, and they can take it or not. That doesn't bother you. They can like it or not. That doesn't bother you. But when they gift you with response, that's quite pleasurable.
Right.
That's quite pleasurable. That is the gift being returned to you, in a way. Yeah.
And I remember this one time I went outside and there was a number of people that I had requested try it. And one person like looked at me and was like, "Oh, I forgot about the onions." And then I was leaving. And then I brought my container out and I said, "Well, since you forgot."
Brilliant.
and other people at the table, some people who had tried it were, praising it. Other people that didn't try it wanted to try it as well. And then everybody was just sort of praising me. And I was like, okay, good. That's why I came out here. I came out here to get a little praise because I
yeah, that's right, you did. Absolutely, you did. Yeah.
And I told them that. And I it was told like as in a funny way, but it, like fun sort of engaging way. But it was like, because even one person, this guy that is part of the community as well. He was just like, "Oh, did you need anything else?" And I was like, "No, that's it. I just needed."
Can I join you again, Martin?
Oh yeah, come on back up. But and he asked, he questioned, did you get everything you needed there? And I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to be leaving, and I want to make sure that I have enough to kind of get me over the hump for the rest of the day or whatever. And so it was nice, to get a little praise and then to pack it all up. And I left some behind for the owner of the house and stuff. And it was good. It was a really nice experience. And, but again, it's like, identifying this comes into identifying the particular. I realize that this is what I want and I'm going to express what it is, and that's okay. But I don't have to have a leading question. I don't have to yes, I wanted to come out for, maybe I'll say praise, but really what I want to come out for is for you guys for you guys to have this experience and to recognize that things are attainable. And
that's what I was going to say to you is you've offered a gift of an experience, I think, actually, is what you did there. You've kind of put it all together. You've actually got hold of it. You've made it. You've presented it, and you're presenting a gift of an experience. And it doesn't really matter to you whether nobody tried it. But you knew that they would. You kind of knew that they would if it was presented in the right way. But you didn't put the question, "Do you love it?" Or "Did you love that?" There was none of that kind of like railing in. It was just open you were open to receive feedback from it or none. You were open to both ends of the scale. You created no particular from it all. You just opened it up.
Yeah, I asked people to try it, and even after they did, I didn't go up to them and ask them what they thought. When I was out on the back deck and kind of spooning it out and people were saying it was good, I don't even think I asked anybody. I think they would look at me and like raise their eyebrows and be like, "Oh, that's really good." But I don't think I really presented anybody with the question, except when they told me it was good. "Oh, do you like it?" "Good." That's kind of how I would say it. Like that would be the only question. It was just like, "Oh, did you like it?" "Oh, good. I'm glad." Okay, good. Even in here, she teaches by being without explanation.
Yeah.
Because of this, the master doesn't rely on words. She teaches by being without explanation. In this way, she is the most helpful. So by me not asking the leading question, wow, that's so clear, right? Like, because of this, the master doesn't rely on words. She doesn't rely on the words of the leading question or whatever it is. She teaches by being without explanation. She teaches by allowing you to have the experience that you're having without explaining what I want, without explaining what is the particular here.
Yeah,
and
there's
in
no
this
steps.
Way,
no steps involved. There's no particular way, no steps involved in you doing this. There's no kind of do it this way. This is an open thing. Here's
Yeah.
his experience. And that was it. There's no words.
Yeah.
And from that, people can use their own kind of response and learn by that. And that's what, that's why it's helpful.
And this is the most helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because I'm putting it all, like, I'm giving you the opportunity to be you.
Yeah.
And respond to this in whatever way you need to. And how you respond isn't something I'm going to respond to. And if my body does respond to it, I get to recognize that this is a lesson that I can walk away with.
Yeah.
It's mine. Like, how I hear what you say isn't your responsibility. It's mine.
That's it. Yeah. We've spoken about that before, that, you can have a whole conversation with someone, and with all of the intent in the world that you have for pinpointing particular ideas, or, kind of encouraging the imagination, none of that actually occurs in the receiver.
Right.
They hear something completely different.
Right.
Because that's theirs then.
Because they're coming at this from their own subjective experience.
Yes.
They're coming at the objective truth from their subjective experience. And now whatever it is that they experience has to do with the frames of reference, the influence, the experiences, and all of the things that they've had. Now, can they be calm in receiving that which they believe they're receiving? And then can they take responsibility for that? Or are they going to be victims to your words?
Yeah, that's it. That's theirs as well, not yours. So we come back to this thing where you believe you may get into trouble.
Right.
That's yours.
That's
but
mine.
It's not theirs. It's
Right.
not because of them.
Right.
It's not because of the response that you've given. That particular feeling is yours, and you've created it. No one else.
And then the next line, she inspires all things to be without rejecting them. She's not going to reject me because I think I'm going to get in trouble. She's not going to reject me because, she's not going to, like, the master isn't going to ask a leading question or whatever. But, I can, by not sending a leading question, and if I were to present a leading question, that would be rejecting, right? I would be, like, by asking, didn't you love that show? I am rejecting you inadvertently, right? Like, you could have the experience of me rejecting you if I ask a leading question that tells you what you're supposed to feel and you don't feel that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Also, in that thing, you can feel that going on.
Right.
You can feel that rejection of any other thing that you're going to say. You can feel that in that question when it's asked.
Right.
You're
right.
Like, you do
and
not
that's
want
still
my
yours.
opinion. You want me to formulate an opinion that is in line with your own beliefs. That's what you're asking. You're not asking me. You're asking me to reflect what you already think the answer is.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's still your perception.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
You've put out in the universe what you're looking to experience. The universe gives you that by someone else asking you a leading question, but that leading question is coming because you're putting it out there. They don't know what they're saying. They may be, in their minds, they're just asking a regular question. In your mind, in my mind, let's say, it's leading because I'm afraid of getting in trouble. And so I'm hearing it in a certain way. What they say has nothing to do with what I hear. This is still my own subjective experience. And they're using words that they're not referencing in the same way I am.
Yeah.
So she inspires all things to be without rejecting them. So in their words, they're not rejecting me. And yet I feel that way because I have a frame of reference that puts me in a position to be afraid to be in trouble.
Yeah, you're still under the influence.
That's right.
Yeah.
She gives them life, but refuses to possess them. So she, is going to, I'm not going to come up with a definition of what it is you're trying to say. Mm-hmm. And yet that's what I could do if I hear a quote unquote leading question.
Yes.
I'll be giving life, and I will possess it. I will possess it through my subjective experience.
Yes. Yeah, wow. It's interesting, isn't it? It's so interesting. I do absolutely love having these conversations with you, because it opens up so much more of this experience that I'm having.
Yeah.
Every time it's like a conversation with you. For me, what I hear and what I gain from it is a real step up every time. And I enjoy it so much. I do. And I know when I say I'm enjoying it so much that I'm creating the fact that I don't enjoy something. I'm quite aware of that. But that's the balance of all things, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So,
and that's the thing. Just like, it's interesting. A lot of people, when I have conversations with them, will come up and say, oh my God, like every time we talk, we have these deep conversations. And one, they're not deep to me. And
no,
it's
that's
not
right.
that it's not. It's only not deep because I am always having conversations like this.
Yeah, I do that too. And also I do it with myself. Something that I've got to say about that, Martin John, is, I've had conversations with people who find it frustrating when they are trying to express themselves in this way regularly in the manifestation. They find, there's just not people that I can talk to about these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they find it very frustrating. I said, listen, all people are different. They are all on their own paths, and they are doing their task, and they're doing it perfectly. And they're doing that task and being them in their world so that you can be you in your world.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good. I like a Dumbo or two.
And it's going to be, and I feel like, when we look at the fact that other people can't have this conversation in your circle, well, that's on you, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
There is a belief. There's probably like you're under the influence, or you live with a frame of reference that, and this has to do with, I think, like you're having been an orphan and all of these other things where it's just like you're on the outside.
I always think to myself as well,
inside.
Martin John, sorry about interrupting you, but I think to myself, there's one question that I have after that, and it's not necessarily me that thinks that way. I'll talk to anybody anytime. It's not a problem.
Absolutely,
it's nor. But the question I ask when people say this to me, and it's two people that have said it to me quite recently, I say, have you tried? Have you attempted this? And how have you gone about that? Have a look at that. Have a look at the connection, that you're trying to make. And maybe if this particular way that you're feeling doesn't work, there are so many other options.
Absolutely. And those are great ways. That's a great way to get, somebody to just ask the question, or to become comfortable with asking a question, because they probably aren't comfortable with asking a question at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
again, it's back to them. You really
right.
It's back to,
and then when it comes back to you, the question is, why do you think they don't want to do that?
Yeah.
Why do you believe they don't want to do that? And then track that back to your story, right?
That's
that
right.
way you start creating a platform to engage with people, creating a belief within yourself when you engage with people that, oh, they are open. Why are they not open? They're not open because I have an experience of not being open to new things, because those things can harm me, right? Like, because if you had whatever, like in your experience, like it's tracking all of that back to where the frame of reference was built.
That's right. Like you were mentioning earlier, my frame of reference is definitely built by lack of parenting.
Right.
So,
And
it's all been a guessing game, Martin John.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have these, and don't forget that, like, having parents doesn't mean it's not a guessing game.
Yeah.
Having parents means you're living under the influence of those parents who may be guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Now you
hands up in the air. I was guessing. I was one of those
Right.
guessing parents.
And the thing is you believe you're guessing, and
Yeah.
you also believe you're faulty because you have lived your life and you've seen how many times you've been wrong.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Parents, when you look at your parents, you don't believe they're making the wrong choice because they're your
No.
parents. You believe they're making the right choice, even if they're just guessing. And then it takes people, decades to figure out that, all of life is just guessing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a frame of reference that you're living by. Not you, everybody. Everybody lives.
Yeah.
This is why I say, you're living under the influence of your parents.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for going through this with me. And this was a random one that we picked after. And that's why I like doing this. You set a baseline and then you see where it takes you.
I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you very much, Martin John. And I will be taking this into my day.
Thank you. Love you, dear. Thank you for coming up.
Yeah, you're welcome. Love you.
Bye-bye. We're going to bring Dr. Rao up. It's often Dr. Rao has something to share, and I'm looking forward to learning about that.
Hi, Martin.
How are you, Doctor?
I am great.
Wonderful.
Now that no explanation is given,
Yes.
that's very significant because I first heard that Ramana Maharshi teaches the highest in silence. I said, what does it mean? We all want so many explanations, so much exploration and all that, right? Look at it this way. Why do you need explanations? Not you or anybody.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, see, what I mean is, why do anybody asks for explanations? Because they don't have answers within themselves.
Right. They don't trust.
Yeah.
They don't trust it's going to unfold.
The exploration is not there.
Right.
You tell me, I will listen to you, then I will take it.
Yes.
Right? So, when I understood was, there was an incident, I don't have much time, I'll just share this and I'll leave that. What it is at this place, his ashram, this then President of India came, and he was a freedom fighter and he was a figure really, first President of India. So he came in, and along with his entourage, a lot of people came in too. So 3 days he stays in Ramana ashram, and Ramana is there. He doesn't even ask one question. He stays silent and then stays with it. And then that's when it was mentioned. The highest teaching is done by silence.
Yes.
Why? Because if you are in silence, you are in synchrony. So what requires is not asking for explanations, but asking why I need this explanation for this, what is my intent, is there really need for it, or am I just going to be satisfied with the explanation and I don't do anything about it.
Right.
Suppose you turn inward and you find that you are cheating at something, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you really, slow down and face yourself, nobody need to tell you that is the truth.
Right.
That is there, and then the moment you are aware of it, you can transform it.
That's right.
But, we cover it up with a lot of expressions, a lot of justifications, a lot of childhood memories, whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Whatever.
We do. I think that's where, once I understood that the frequency, Ramana Maharshi has no problem. What it is you got to get to that frequency.
Right.
Quieten your mind and be there. Then see what you read about that master.
Mm-hmm.
No explanation is given.
Right.
That really sparked me in my mind. After that, once it dawned on me why silence is the highest, then, most of the day I'm silent. Not by choice, just happens, right? But when I'm talking, I do talk. But then immediately slip into that silence. So that I think is a blessing for me.
It is. And I get, like you said, it's not a choice. It's like you're just called to silence.
Yeah, meditation is not like something you do. It happens.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah. So, but then you do a lot of stuff to get to the stage, but then that's afterward. So, I know before Ramana Maharshi, there is a mythical figure. I don't know the historical thing about it, but very big in spirituality in ancient India, Dattatreya, right?
Okay.
And he also taught in silence, right? Him we don't, but there are a lot of slokas, a lot of things that you can go and explore and all that really comes through very well. But then this is not one particular figure, that is the thing. It's a phenomena, the communication that is happening in silence. Our problem is our mind is chattering.
Yes.
Originally, there is only silence. And then the movement of this thought and the movement of speech and all these things happen, vocal vibrations, everything happens after in silence. Universe is in silence. If you get out of the planet, immediately you end up in silence, right?
Yeah.
And then like that, once you understand silence is the fundamental phenomena that is there, and we kind of interfere with our own movements, then it's a different energy. See this need
because there's a preconceived.
Yeah,
Right.
You kind of you are in silence. That's the fundamental. But everything else we do is out of it.
Right.
Once you have that, then it's natural to slip into that every time you talk or whatever is needed.
Right, because you can speak in silence. Your mind can still be silent while you're speaking. That's not unheard of.
There's something else to it, Martin. If you taste that nectar of the divine, your mind will be silent.
Yes.
So what it is when you're asking for outward explanations, outward justifications and all that, you are really not tasting the divine.
Right.
For that, you got to turn inward, you got to keep quiet, and then explore. People are not doing that because they think everything is in the word or in the explanation.
Yeah.
See,
they're looking outside of themselves for all of the answers.
When you read that, she takes everything but doesn't reject anything. That's also very, very important. You know? It's not like, I don't want this and all that. But, so what happens is speech drops. And you are in original, not that you have developed silence. You are originally in silence, but we have been doing the all other activity because the life is there and stimuli are there and all. There is one verse in Bhagavad Gita. It says, whenever you see a stimuli, you withdraw your limbs like a tortoise does.
Like what?
Tortoise. Turtle.
Oh, tortoise. Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever it is threatened, it kind of withdraws all his limbs inside.
Yes.
like here, that is not the threat, even the sensory stimulation, whatever you are faced to, immediately you withdraw from it. That's actually a chief practice that you get to do to really gain that stability of mind.
Yeah.
So when they said no explanations are given and as to communicate, the master will communicate. But are you available, eligible to receive that?
Yeah. That's the biggest question. Like,
Yeah.
And there's so many verses that talk about if it can be received.
Yeah, that's it. Why it is not received is because they want no work by myself, no turning inward, no exploration. And that's why I'm going to read in books, I'm going to read in treatises and then say, okay, they said this, that's why it is like so. But
Right.
what about enlighten you, light in you? Has it sparked? Have you pursued that? See, even science also, the Eureka movement. It doesn't happen just because somebody gave you explanation and you buy it.
Right.
It happens when you discover it by yourself, that insight. But in the inward world is much more important.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. I have a meditation.
Yes, I know you have your class coming up. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
We're going to bring up my buddy Mary. Good morning, dear. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. It's a beautiful, crisp, almost fall morning. Woke up this morning, it was like 56. It's beautiful.
I know. These are the best days. Fall is my absolute favorite season and time of year because it's not too hot, right?
Nice.
It's similar to spring, except that spring it's the combination of like muddy and watery, getting rid of the little bit of snow left, right? So it's a little bit messy out there, but fall is perfect.
Yeah, well, it all has purpose, but it's always nice. I remember one time, I knew someone whose response to what's your favorite season, she was always the next one.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. And you know what? I think I get that because when seasons change, it's like our seasons go with it.
Yeah.
And
it's like, it's always nice. It's always nice to come out of something that was stable and go through a transition and then come into a new understanding of things, and I really did, like, I admired that response. It's like, I hate answering like, what is your favorite anything? Because it's like, it's going to change. What's your favorite food? Well, there is none. There is no favorite. What's your favorite person? What's your favorite this? What's your favorite? It's like, I remember when I was a kid, as a kindergartner, I was interviewed by 8th graders or something like that. And when they came in and asked what my favorite color was, I always just wanted to pick the answer that would just be the most ridiculous. And I said black. And I think when they asked why, I was like, because nobody likes black, nobody's going to pick black as their favorite color. So I'll do it. I'll take one for the team in this way and like really love everything as it is. And so even as a child, I guess I was out there doing this kind of work.
Well, and that's the thing. And even when we pick our favorite color, right? Like purple is mine, but purple is a combination of red and blue. Mm-hmm. So there's a combination of everything and everything.
Yeah.
And, but I understand what you're saying, and I think we go through spurts, like when you were talking about favorite food. I love chicken and I can eat that most of the time. But then what happens if I go through a spurt of I love pizza and that's my favorite food of the time, right?
Yeah.
So
it's all like they asked me my favorite food, and I think it was because the night before my mom made meatloaf. I was like, my mom's meatloaf. And it was
Right.
just like, it was just at that moment. That was what I was looking forward to coming home and eating leftovers of that. Because sometimes leftovers are just so much better.
Oh my God. Yes. We agree on that too. Like, my fiance will make goulash, right? And it's good, but then the next day it's even better. And there's something about that, right? It's just like maybe the flavor settles in but there's something about the day after, and I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
But the day after, and think about that. Maybe when I go to write a book, I'll name it The Day After.
And there is, and in Tao we talk about that too. It's like there's, I think it's called like action and integration, right? Like after any state of action, there comes a state of stillness. And in that stillness is when all of the action that you took integrates. And so like if we look at it from the standpoint of food, you make your food and that's the action, and then you eat it and it's like, okay, this is good. But then the next day, the soup or the whatever was supposed to just kind of sit together a little bit and integrate more. And then it's just richer. And it has this richer sensation. It has this, more depth of flavor. And that's what happens in our lives when we allow ourselves the stillness after an action, after we go through a transition, after we go through a big thing, our lives become richer.
The perspective, right? Because like anything that I have gone through, albeit good or bad, has always made me stronger.
You grow through what you go through.
The day after.
Yeah.
I mean, so, wow, look at this conversation. It's brought me to a point where, because I know deep inside, I know I'm going to write a book. I know that I was meant to.
Yeah. Well, like it's when that comes, that is just going to happen. It's not, like you don't have to
force
put it on a thing. Yeah, force it. It's just, you have to open yourself up to receive the inspiration to actually take the action to do it.
Honey, my life is the inspiration.
Well, not the inspiration for the book, but the inspiration to take the action to do to write it. Because you have to be still enough to hear now. Right.
No, I know. No, I understood what you're saying, but yeah, I get it. Yep.
So I know you were with your grandchild this weekend. How did that go?
Good. They're both here sleeping.
Wonderful.
Yeah, because they don't like to go to sleep when they come to Grandma and Poppy's house because my son works overnight, so he doesn't bring them until like midnight.
Oh, wow.
But then they get here and they end up becoming wide awake because they just like to spend the time, Yeah. And at the meantime, I'm exhausted.
Wow.
But they're loving, and their children are so precious in the way that their love is so unconditional. They've not been jaded by anything, right? And that's when we need to go back and encapsulate and remember what our imaginations were, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we grab a hold. And that was one of the questions I answered last night, and those, I call them the 60 seconds, was how do we motivate ourselves? And we can get so stagnated in finding ways to motivate, right? Sometimes we only have a few things that we hold on to spark that. And so the one thing that came to my mind was, if we want to motivate ourselves, why don't we time capsule back to childhood and grab onto that imagination of ours and create, we become a physical fitness instructor for a day and do everything that they would do, right? And let that be our motivation. Do something out of the box.
Yeah, that's where, I was talking one day, I think last week, about the idea that life is temporary. So just fucking do whatever you do. Like, it's not, it's like, try this, try that, even if, we've talked in the past about the idea of like, well, what are you good at? You're good at things that you were praised for, and you're bad at things that you were punished for. And so, or that you did poorly at some point. And it's like, well, that doesn't mean you're going to be bad at it. It just means this is where you're going to be, investing time to practice this. It's like, oh, I was praised at, writing, so I'm going to continue to, seek out cheap praise by continuing to write. Or I am going to seek out, cheap praise by continuing to, like even for me, I was talking about my fermented onions that I brought to this potluck the other day. It's like, I'm going to seek praise by continuing to impress people on what I can do with, onions and salt or whatever, like in fermentation and the diet that I have to be on because of my MS, right? Like, and so, we're good at that. Why are we good at it? Because it gives us a good response. It gives us praise.
Exactly. And, I'm even going to take that one step further. And with the things that we know we're not good at, I think that's how you worded it, right?
Yeah.
Is that then maybe we should stop and think, obviously I am not a painter. I can only draw.
I don't know that that's obvious, but go on.
I'm going to tell you, I can only draw stick figures. I am not somebody who
right. And so at some point you were, like you judged yourself, or you figured out that, like other people judged you, and you learned how to judge yourself through that. And you say, I can only draw stick figures. And I'll tell you, I don't know what's wrong with drawing stick figures. I've seen people do that very well and in a very good way that, and the thing is you haven't, and it sounds even like there is no room to practice that skill. And that's right. Fine. You don't have to. However, don't sit there and say you're not good at it. Just say, well, you haven't invested any time in being good at it. So what?
You know what? And, it takes me back to, here you go. You're right. Because my point was going to be, so we're not good at certain things, but are we not really good at them because other people told us we're not good at them?
Right. And that's the whole point. You pick that up from somewhere else.
Exactly, because I remember being in art class one time when I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and we had to draw something with these trees, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, well, I made perfectly round trees instead of those with leaves. And I'm like, oh, these are really pretty, because I like things that are smooth and just perfect looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she came by and she goes, when do you ever see a round tree? And she said it out loud, and it was so embarrassing because I was not popular to begin with. And so it made me feel so idiotic. But, that's an abstract piece of art, correct?
Right. And so you learned that if you can't make it look like a photo, and that's what how a lot of people, oh, it's so good, it looks like a photo. Well, I don't know why that's good, but okay, whatever, that's fine for you. And now you have to make things look like they are, which is why you only drew stick figures, right? Because it's like, well, I can't, people don't look like that, but, and so all of this resonates. So now, sitting here, let's find a number.
I had already chosen my love, 46. You know me.
46, I know. Let's, and I want to move it. See, knowing when to stop. So, we're going to read this, and we're going to talk about like these frames of reference that we pick up, and we're going to look at it from this idea of having preconceived ideas.
Wow.
So
I don't know why I'm shocked anymore. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't be. You got to have faith, like in your heart. It's all here. Knowing when to stop. When Tao is followed, shelter, food, and water are prioritized. Going counter to Tao, war, excess, and hoarding are praised. He who believes there isn't enough is cursed to never have enough. He who believes he must acquire will acquire nothing that lasts. There is no greater waste of time or energy than being discontent. Therefore, the master knows what is enough and is content to stop there. Do you find, can you see in that any connection?
Yes, I can. Because it's like, and I'm going to compare it right now to what I am going through at this current moment, right?
Yeah.
Rather than giving my trust to God. And it's the same, like I said, our beliefs for the most part run concurrent. And so it is, am I going to trust more in myself and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing for solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is making me very discontent.
Right.
It keeps me uptight. It keeps me stressed out. Or am I going to be content that God and what He's doing is enough for me in this situation, and be patient?
Mm-hmm.
And now, what do you think? What are you taking from it?
Well, so what I see clearly in what we were talking about, in the idea of living under the influence of concepts, and like being told that you are, like you did a bad drawing, and so you're bad at art, and so you don't make art, right? When Tao is followed, shelter, food, and water are prioritized. The things that help our lives. Going counter to Tao, war, excess, and hoarding are praised. Now, that war is conflict, right? Mm-hmm. Excess is measurement. Hoarding is like living with a stockpile of something or holding on to an idea. So in those three things, the conflict is between you and your teacher telling you that it's supposed to be done a specific way. You're not doing it that way. Excess comes to this idea of measurement. So you now have you have established a measurement with what is good and what is bad, with concerns of making art. And so with concerns of how the world is going to receive your creativity. And hoarding is your keeping that in mind and keeping that idea alive and taking away your ability to continue practicing that which is, that's the food of your creativity, right? Like the ability to make something, the ability to just to allow yourself the foundational creativity, right? The shelter, food, and water of your creativity. Sure. It's not food, shelter, and water. That's your life. And then creativity kind of comes on top of that. But that was shut down due to conflict and the belief in your teacher, because you learned from them that art is made in a specific way and you don't do it that way.
And that's all that's beautiful.
Right. Like, so what you think is beautiful is not beautiful. So then eventually you will believe that you're not beautiful. He who believes there isn't enough is cursed to never have enough. And that's creativity, beauty, all of these things in the story that you tell yourself due to this experience you had with your teacher. He who believes he must acquire will acquire nothing that lasts. So this could be in beauty, and this could be in like being appreciated or whatever, so you picked up all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. What's that?
I said, that's what I love, is that these messages, right, encapsulates so many different things, right. But each number doesn't apply to every situation.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But and there is no greater waste of time or energy than being discontent. And as soon as you said, it's obvious I can't paint, and I was like, well, it's not obvious, and you defended your ability to not be good at something and not be good at that. Like, you defended it. And really, I mean, I'm sure you're even seeing now that that's silly.
It is,
Because
had that not been stopped, I never pursued the opportunity of maybe learning more.
Right, absolutely. So it's not that you're not good at it. It's that you haven't invested in it. You haven't invested in it because you did not stop judging yourself from that moment. And that's what this title refers to, knowing when to stop. Knowing when to stop judging yourself. Knowing when to stop, because what you're doing right now is you're at war with your creativity. So going counter to Tao, war, excess, and hoarding are praised, and that's what you're doing. You're at war. You're in conflict with your creativity. You have taken this teacher's criticism and elevated it, and so there's your excess, and you have held on to it. That's your hoarding. Therefore, the master knows when enough is enough and is content to stop there. So it's enough. You can start sketching again. You can start drawing again.
You know what? That's awesome, because there's certain electives that I have to take for school. And it falls under arts and whatever. And just the word art makes me cringe.
Right. You're like, I don't want to do that. Of course you don't, because you're holding on to this stupid judgment that you never needed to hold on to.
Isn't that crazy? The way things get embedded in your mind. Wow.
Knowing when to stop.
I just, every time, I had just woke up right at 11:15 and listened to yours truly. I love her.
No, yes, she's beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm like, I hope that, and then I heard Dr. Rao come on, and I'm like, I hope I at least get to say good morning.
Of course. I try not to cut out when there's someone in the queue. Sometimes that has to happen, but it's rare. And I'm so glad that we got a chance. When I saw you in the queue, I was very happy. So
yes. And I know you're over time, and I'm so sorry.
That's fine. No. No one's cutting me off. I'm here, and I'm here spending time with you, and that's beautiful, and I'm grateful for it.
Oh, me too. And I don't know if my DM is going to be fixed today or whenever. I know some other people have had issues with it, so I don't know.
I know I had issues with it a while back, but it seems like all of my stuff is working at the moment.
Good. I hope that mine gets fixed too, but I'm going to find a way to message my Martin one way or another. Sometimes you have to get creative, right?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you let me know. That way I was, just checking in.
Yeah, I'm even if I have to use my question way, find, I found 3 ways, and I'm I'm gonna let him know. I'm not ignoring him.
I am accessible. I try to be, at least.
Yeah, and I felt bad, though, I'm going to tell you, because there was somebody new who had just started following me, and she tried to reach out to me, and my heart broke because I couldn't reach out to her.
Yeah.
I reached back out to her.
Yeah, that's such it's hard when, you feel like your hands are tied, and I think that you should recognize that as part of the work that you're doing with your identity, with all of your, all of the stuff, all of the abuse, and your hands are tied and you can't do anything. That all, you can't respond. That is, that's a theme that keeps coming up.
Do you know what I liken it to? It's if someone tells you you have to sit on your hands and still eat a meal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, you gotta do it. You, no matter how bitter it is, sometimes you still have to.
But it's still a blessing.
Yeah.
It is still a blessing. Every single hardship or challenge I have ever gone through or might still face or am currently facing, it is still a blessing. Because I know that it's going to come to an end at some point. it is making me stronger, even though I may have my bad moments, right? Because it is just giving me another population to help. And I may have said that before on here, I'm not sure, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going some days.
Yeah. We all need something.
We have to reframe the way that we think, but we can't reframe it from a place of insincerity.
Right. No, well, I mean, it's best that we don't, but we will, you know what I mean? like we will be affected by those things around us, by people, I was even talking earlier about people asking pointed questions or questions that are leading. It's like, well, you can't, it's hard to answer leading questions in opposition to the direction that you're being led. That's not easy. So it's important.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's important to be authentic as you can be in this moment. That doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect. That doesn't mean you're going to uphold all of the ethics and concepts that you want to. However, you're going to do as good as you can at this moment. The next most obvious thing, it's good.
Absolutely. It depends on what day they catch me on.
That's right. Because every day you're going to be different. Exactly. In 3 days, you're going to be able to respond differently than you will today.
Exactly.
Because you're going to keep growing. You're going to keep loving yourself even deeper and giving yourself more opportunities to do things like in 6 months, you're probably not going to be someone that is going to respond to any question as, well, it's obvious I can't paint. Who knows where you're going to be in 6 months?
I'm going to be Van Gogh. I'm going to paint Mona Lisa's husband.
There you go.
Have I told you lately that I adore you?
Oh, I love you.
And I love you. And I appreciate you beyond words.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I'm glad that we're connected.
Me too.
All right, I'm going to sign out. So you have a wonderful day, sweetheart.
You too, honey. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, thank you guys so much for joining me. This is Martin John. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my Tao Te Ching, you can do so at my website. You can find links in my profile. I often post these conversations, these Taos of the day, on a podcast on Spotify, which you can find. It's called Tao of the Day. And you can also join me on my YouTube channel. Once again, the link tree in my profile will lead you to all of those things. I also have a Recover Yourself workshop that you can purchase there. No pressure, but I do lots of stuff, and you can engage with me, and you can also have your own hour session with me talking about the Tao and talking about what's going on in your life. If you need a reframe of anything that's going on in your life, Kathy, I was signing out, but I'm going to pull you up. Sometimes it's a mistake, but I don't believe we've spoken before, so I'm going to chat with you briefly. Hey, Kathy, how are you?
Hi. I'm okay.
That's good. What's going on in your life these days?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Okay. So let's just connect really quick and see what's going on. So a lot of things are going on. Are you? I'm just gonna pry a little bit. Is work life? How's that?
Oh, that's good. I run a family farm.
You run a family farm?
Yeah.
Is it your family?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. So you grow lots of things. Have you heard this program before?
I've been following it for the last probably month and a half now.
Oh, so yes. Yeah, that's a strong yes.
Well, it's new to me, but it's very relaxing, and it's helped my mind.
Oh, well, good. Well, why don't we go ahead and pick a number between 1 and 81?
25.
25. Okay. 25 is entitled, I Call It Tao. Now, I don't know how this is going to resonate with all that's going on with you, but we're going to read it, and I'll talk with you about it. And what I always like to do, and you may know this, is to just read it. And it's hard the first time you hear these words to understand everything that's kind of going on in it and all of that kind of stuff. But if any word or phrase stands out, I'm going to ask you about that. And then we can start going through it line by line. And I'll ask if anything resonates specifically with you, and we'll see. We'll see if there's anything that we can kind of attach. So before the manifestation of heaven, there is void. It is still and has no form, inexhaustible. It reaches everywhere. It is the core of everything. Since names became important, I call it Tao. It flows among manifestation without resistance, inside, outside, conscious and subconscious. Tao is great. Universes are great. Planets are great. Beings are great. These four are all great and follow the law of their principle. All beings follow their planets. Planets follow their universe. Universes follow Tao, and Tao follows only its nature. Anything stand out to you?
The thing behind follow. That's the only word that stood out to me.
Follow. So, you know, what's interesting is as I'm reading this, the thing that stands out to me about someone who works on a family farm is that you are, guided by the weather and the planet. Like you are, all beings follow their planet. Like you, in terms of having to plant and sow and care for the land, you are definitely following the planet. Like, and you are connected to the planet. And Tao, like, I'm sure there are things that you do. Of course, there's a schedule that you have to keep and stuff, but I'm sure there are things that you've done and were inspired to do maybe outside of that, like whether it's caring for, and the verse that we read earlier was food, water, and shelter are prioritized when Tao is followed. And here we are now talking about following Tao and how we follow the planet when we are, when we're connected.
That's true.
And so, like as like you came on and you were like, a little bit of everything is happening. Well, that's a big deal, right? Because when a little bit of everything is happening, what is it what's going to rise to the top? Where are you going to put your attention? How are you going to spend your time being with yourself? Because I'm sure there's lots of quiet time in your work.
It don't feel like it.
No. Well, maybe not.
No.
Maybe that's something that you need to find.
I agree.
What?
My quiet time is usually when my grandkids are here and we just go and have fun. We just do whatever. We'll go play outside in the yard. We'll go feed the animals. We walk around. That's my quiet time.
Yeah. And it's always busy otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes too busy.
Yeah, it does. It's starting to sound like, all these are great and follow the law of their principle, meaning that you follow the law of the planet. Like the being, like us, we follow the law of the planet. But what ends up happening, I think, in a world that we live in today is we end up following laws of other beings.
Yeah.
We have a measurement that isn't simply given to us by the planet, but it's given to us by other people, by expectations not only of other people, but sometimes expectations of ourselves, because we're living under the influence of an impression that we have to do something more than we're doing.
Yeah. That sounds right.
And this starts with, before the manifestation of heaven, there was Tao. It is still and has no form, inexhaustible. It reaches everywhere. It is at the core of everything. So this void, this emptiness is Tao. This stillness is Tao. Stillness has been something that's been coming up a lot today. Like I talked about it with Dr. Rao. I talked about it with, Julie's stillness of the mind, and like the idea of being asked leading questions and other things like that. And then here we are again, kind of sitting here with like, it is at this stillness, this void, this emptiness is at the core of everything. And yet we, with all of the experience of our lives, have all of these preconceived ideas of what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to be. And yet, all we have to do is follow the planet and trust ourselves.
Yeah. Take the time to stop and think and continue on.
Well, stop and be more than stop and think, because thinking often gets us into more trouble than it's worth.
That's true.
Because if we can stop and just allow ourselves to be, now, does that mean you have to drop the ball on a couple things that probably are a little less important than we give them importance for? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's just because we spent 20 years working on something that's constantly failing doesn't mean we have to continue doing that. And I don't know that that's what you're doing. I'm just saying that because, I don't know why I said 20 years, and I don't know why I'm saying this, but it's coming out of my mouth. So I'm just going to continue. Because it's, because it's oftentimes so I'm coming out of addiction. You may have heard that. And there was a point where I made the decision to drink, and I made this decision to use drugs. And then I had an identity that revolved around those things, and quitting those things became difficult because my identity and who I was surrounded, was encapsulated those activities. So the question became, if I don't do this, who will I be? And that often happens in other aspects too. If I don't do this job, if I'm not a farmer, who am I? If I'm not, people question their choices all the time. Sometimes they don't reevaluate because it becomes so much a part of their lives. And yet within you, you are not a thing. You are connected to God, or you're connected to Tao, and you are connected to all things. And by being connected to all things, you're capable of anything. Because as it says here, it flows. This thing that is the void, that was here before everything, this thing that created, that everything grew out of, everything came from. It flows amongst manifestation. We are manifestation because we have bodies and all of this, without resistance, inside, outside, conscious and subconscious. And it's guiding us. Tao is great. Universes are great. Planets are great. Beings are great. All the way down to us. And there's no difference to the greatness. We as individuals are great, and yet we want to go against that greatness often so that we can have an identity. It's like, well, instead of being connected to everything, I will be connected to my identity that I opted for over other things. And then it says, all beings follow their planet. And that's what you're doing. That's your life. And it's what I'm doing too. I'm doing it not necessarily as a farmer, right? But I'm doing it in a different way. I was even talking earlier about just being present with the crisp, cold air of the morning. It's like being here.
I did that with the rain this morning.
Oh, that was it heavy rain or just nice? Where are you at?
I live in South Carolina.
South Carolina. Nice. Was it a driving rain, or was it just a kind of nice drizzly rain that you can have a nice fucking coffee with?
Oh no, it was a nice little downpour.
Oh,
I
okay.
had just let my dogs out and I felt a drop on my arm and I was like, okay, this is nice. Okay, we gotta hurry up, puppies.
Yeah.
And my dogs looked at me like, and then I could hear it through the trees and everything. I was like, oh no, it's time to go
Yep.
outside.
It's time to go inside. We don't need to add showers to the day. Man.
Right? Not twice.
Yeah, right? Oh.
But it was nice. It was cool, and it left a nice cool breeze instead of a hot, sweaty one like the last few weeks have been. It's like
Yeah.
it's been nice and cool, relaxing almost, as if like a weight was lifted.
That's beautiful. Like, and how, and you know, when that happens, sometimes that's that when we recognize that, you know, just the fact that you recognize that, like that a weight is lifted, you know, that probably reads that, is there somewhere that you can release so that you can lift a weight? Maybe that's in crying, or maybe that's in just like, you know, when those clouds open up to release the rain, they're holding less weight. You know, and that's something that you recognized. And if that's something that you recognized, I would pay attention to that and like look in your life as to, is there a weight that I'm holding on to that I could let go? Whether that be letting it go through crying, because I mean, that's, you know, that's the obviousness of rain, but it doesn't have to be, you know, because I'm sure in your work, you know, farmers don't cry. You know what I mean? Like there's a suck it up sort of attitude of like, because unless we're really sort of connected, like sometimes it's like, oh, this is bad timing. Oh, because you have a schedule. And yet, even though you have a schedule, there is a need to follow your planet.
Yeah, the Lord was listening one day.
Yeah.
I was in the field getting ready to do my horse's feet, and I was sitting there just nice and peaceful, and all of a sudden I just started crying. My eyes were watering. It's like, okay. And I happened to look towards the fence line. There was 2 deer walking right along the fence line. And I was like, okay, I hear you.
You're
Hear you
being
loud and clear.
supported. You are definitely being supported.
I was like, okay. I was like, let it out, be done. It's
That's
okay.
right. Yeah. And that's so beautiful.
So,
you know, and that rain this morning where it's like, you know, you feel that drop on your shoulder. That's just like, are you going to pay attention when you see when you see what's coming? Or are you going to turn a blind eye to it and let it drench you and the dogs? And, you know, and get you stuck in the mud and get you stuck, right? Like, and all of this, right? Like it's really a point where we want to just kind of be like, oh, okay, this is, I mean, we can talk about it as premonition. We can talk about it as like whatever, but you know, here you're being shown how to be.
I pay attention. Sometimes I miss it.
Yeah, no, it's hard. The subtle is beautiful, and in the subtle is everything. That's where you know, that's where the Lord is. That's where Tao is. It's in the subtle. It's not going to be conspicuous until it has to be, because you refuse to listen. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate that, and I hope that was helpful. You dropped off. If you had any last words or anything, you can come back up, and I'll bring you up, and we can chat just briefly. Otherwise, I am going to go ahead and sign out. I do hope that was helpful, and I will send you the text to that shortly. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me once again. This is Martin John, and until next time, keep recovering yourself.